Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you might happen to be, wonderful person. And welcome once again to Full Fat Spoiler Chat, as it says right down here. This is the show in which we take a look, a deep dive into a recent piece of nerdy entertainment, and we talk about what we liked about it, what worked about it, what didn't work, what we didn't like, and maybe explore some of the themes, tones, or messages that we were supposed to take away from it. And that means, of course, that we have to spoil it. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, burly_adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places. And tonight we will be spoiling the heck out of the third season, and realistically probably some of the first two seasons, of the recent Netflix reboot of Lost in Space. So, if you have not seen the show, and you do not like spoilers, you should probably wait until you have seen the show and then maybe come back and look at this show, this YouTube show here, for getting any information about whether you agree with any of our statements or not. If you don't mind spoilers, or if you've seen it, absolutely feel free to jump in on the chat. Let us know what you think about our opinions, about what you think of the show itself, or any of the stuff that we're going to be bringing up about it. So, before we get into what this is and where Lost in Space came from, we're going to do a little bit of promo stuff here. We have, of course, a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. And if you have a Twitch account, we'd sure love to have you follow us on there. We're trying to grow our following on Twitch to be more in line with, the really healthy following we have on Facebook for our Facebook live shows, and of course YouTube and other social media. So twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. Check it out if you've got a Twitch channel, and please, if you're of a mind, follow us there. So what is Lost in Space? It is a Netflix series started in 2018 that is a reboot, or reimagining, I guess, of the original series, which is from 1965. Which itself is, and I literally just discovered this, thank you Wikipedia, not just a show inspired by the classic 1812 novel Swiss Family Robinson. It is apparently, or was apparently, inspired directly by a Gold Key comic that started publishing in 1962 called Space Family Robinson. Apparently so closely inspired that the executives at Gold Key Comics considered suing Irwin Allen Productions for copyright infringement. And I guess, according to this article, only decided not to because Gold Key was also publishing the comic book adaptation of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which was also an Irwin Allen production. So they figured that would be a bad business move. All of them, the 1965, well, let's not all of them, the 1965 original and the 2018 reboot, and the 1998 movie, we can't forget that, basically tell essentially the same story. The Robinson family, parents Maureen and John, kids Will, Judy, and Penny, and their generally pilot, navigator, co-crew member, at least in the original series, Don West, and stowaway Dr. Smith, and their adventures out in space because, as it turns out, they are lost in space and don't know how to get back to Earth. That basic core is the same with the 2018 reboot. A couple of minor differences. Dr. Smith is a woman in the 2018 reboot, and played fantastically by Parker Posey. And there are, there are differences in the nature of how the mission, that the exploration mission that they're on, goes awry. But that's true for the movie adaptation as well. Other than that, the basic core structure is really the same. They have a robot. The big difference, and again, this is spoiler chat, so if you haven't seen even the first episode of this, I don't know if it shows them in the first episode or not. I guess it does. Of the first season of the Netflix Lost in Space, this is a spoiler, but again, we're spoiling this stuff. In the original series and the movie, the robot is something that is along with them as an assistant. In this reboot, the robot is an alien artifact, which drives the plot from that point on completely in the 2018 reboot. And I forgot to say this, Dragon Link, welcome to the show in the chat there on YouTube. Again, weigh in with your opinion on any of the stuff that we're talking about here. So, what did I like specifically about the season 3 of Lost in Space, the Netflix series, and that I'm going to have to address some of the stuff from previous seasons. So I'm going to assume if you've seen season 3, you've probably seen the previous seasons. Otherwise, they won't make any sense to you. Season 3 won't. But I'll throw that out there as an extra warning. So what did I like? For the most part, I like the cast. So Maureen and John, that's them in the front there. Molly Parker and Toby Stephens, they're good. They're solid. They're not fantastic. Molly Parker is a little bit better, I think, in conveying her character. But then again, that may be just that her character is written a little bit more as an interesting character. The kids, as you would say, you can't really see their faces here, but that's Will, Judy, and Penny, left to right there. Maxwell Jenkins as Will, Taylor Russell as Judy, and Mina Sunwal as Penny, all do a solid job, and grow over the course of the 3 seasons, not just physically. Will is maybe double his height between season 1 and season 3. That kid grew up fast. But also the actors grew. They definitely do a better job. And I would like to say, I think the writing of the characters grew quite a bit from season 1 to season 3. What else do I like about it? I really like the production design. I think now, it's not The Expanse. It's not a hard science fiction series. People walk around vertically on ships that are being driven horizontally by their engines, so there has to be some sort of gravity thing happening inside their ships. It's very interesting speculative science fiction. The planet environments that they go on, and even some of like the astromechanics when they have to solve problems of 2 bodies moving by each other in space and so on, are pretty solid, or at least they seem pretty solid. But it's not hard science fiction. It is, however, a really good production design of a sort of hard science fiction. And again, like these spacesuits are really well done. The ship designs, go back to the adults here, you can't really see much of it, but in the background there, is the actual cockpit of one of the Jupiter ships. This may in fact be the Jupiter 2 that the Robinsons are in charge of. I think there's a better view of, sort of the lounge area of the Jupiter 2 here, in this shot of Will and the robot. By the way, the robot is played by Brian Steele, who is somebody that you've seen in almost every science fiction fantasy movie that has a monster or a creature in it. Just about every one, he's been something in the background. Whether it's a werewolf in one of the underworlds, or many of the creatures in Hellboy and Hellboy: The Golden Army, or he's just been all over the place in the last 20 years or so. So kudos to him, and he does an excellent job. The production design gives you the look that this is a hard science fiction story, and that's very cool. I like that. It plays fast and loose with some of the physics and other things, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The original appearance of the robots, now, again, fade over to here, this is Robot, just as he's called in the original series. In his second form, Robot ultimately assumes a more humanoid form. But the original look, where is Sar? Oh, I mislabeled it. That's why. The original look is that. That's what the robots look like when Will first runs across Robot. And all of the other robots, apparently there's I know race isn't the right word. There are existing numbers of these robots that were made by an alien species. And you eventually find out where they came from, what happened to the beings that created them, where their home world is. It's a very interesting reveal, and they do a really good job. And here it's a spoiler show, so I shouldn't hesitate to say what it is. But they do a good job with the reveal and the information they present. So, if I were thinking of this as a really solid speculative science fiction work, I think they do a great job with the overall science fiction aspect of it. Certainly the production design of that science fiction. Some of the older ships that are part of this, that are 20, 40 years old in comparison, they do a very good job of making them look like a sort of a bridge between like the International Space Station and the much sleeker, almost flying saucer meets Millennium Falcon design of the Jupiters in this new reboot. So, really good job with the production design. Audio work is great. There's some interesting needle drop music cues throughout the whole thing. That's, those are pretty good. They're not absolutely fantastic, but some of them are actually kind of surprising. I was pleasantly surprised. So the actor playing Don West is Ignacio Cerricio. And they allow the character, and I don't know whether this is the actor just sort of riffing or whether they were written this way because of the fact that they cast a Latinx actor, but they allow this Don West to lean into his, what is now in this show, Latin background. And that's really cool. Now, of course, there's a bit of a problem in that, unlike the original series where Don West is a member of the crew, this Don West sort of joins the crew, becomes a member of the crew, but was a member of a Jupiter crew, but was essentially a smuggler. And his job was he was smuggling goods from Earth to the Alpha Centauri colony, which is where the Jupiter crew, all of the Jupiters, were originally heading toward before they got lost in space. Another big surprise or a big change, and this goes back to season 1, is that the actual getting lost in space is an effect that happens because of the involvement of the alien robots, and it doesn't happen until the end of season 1. They're not where they're supposed to be at the during most of season 1, but they're not lost. They know where they are. They're just not where they're supposed to be. And it's not until the end of season 1 where they actually wind up, technically lost in space. It's more like they're stranded in space, or particularly on a planet, in season 1. That's another thing that this series, particularly in season 3, does better than previous seasons. So in the previous seasons, they're generally on a single planet for the season. In season 2, they split that up a bit. But that's more of the remaining Jupiters are on the larger ship that the Resolutes, or called the Resolute, that the Jupiters attach to as they're traveling. And the Robinsons are stranded on this very bizarre world with wide, vast oceans and weird chasms and so on, which gets explained again. It's very interesting. But it's a single world. And that's kind of a change. It's a big change from the original series where every episode was a different world. Now, a lot of them, they looked exactly like the backlots out there in Burbank, California, where you could get a bunch of sandstone cliffs or you build them and it's a lot of sand and, there's not a lot of variety in the original series. This, at least the worlds are really deeply well realized when they get to them, but there's only, like I said, one per season for the most part. And season 3 changes that. Season 3, they're actually in at least 3 different planets, maybe 4. Yes, they are at 4 different planets. Um, and that makes it a little bit more like, Lost in Space, in which each episode was a different planet for the most part. So I guess where was I going with this? Whether that was a like or a dislike? I guess I like the fact that the planets are so well realized, and I'll spoil the fact that I'm going to be disliking the fact that there's only one or a few per season, and they didn't really sort of stretch their legs in creating a whole bunch of innovative different planets. So other likes about this particular season, and again, just to reiterate, I think the cast, particularly the kids, all developed as actors, and that's really good. And I think the writing of those kids developed, and the writing of the adults, particularly Maureen and John. It's a little less of their sort of dysfunctional family effect and relationship that is certainly a big part of season 1 and still a part of season 2. At this point, as they should have, this is good character development. They've been through some stuff, as you would say, and have grown together or back together as a family. To the extent that, one thing that you would think might and probably would have really damaged their relationship in the beginning is, in this episode, they find Judy is not John's biological child, Maureen's daughter by another person. And that person was one of the early astronauts, and who has been missing for a couple of decades. And they find his ship, and they find him in suspended animation. Of course, it's a big adventure. They revive him, blah, 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 while he ultimately winds up back with the entire group of Jupiters. That relationship potential problem of, the father of the daughter that they've raised as their own daughter, and she considers them her parents, for, however close to 2 decades that Judy is. She's still technically a child, but I think she's like 16 or 17. That could be played in a melodramatic way that would just be, and it's not. They're trained astronauts. They and particularly the Robinsons have been through enough stuff that they realize that survival is way more important than anything. There are some moments, and they play them well, but they don't let that aspect of what could be a bad melodramatic storyline just take over. And again, kudos to them. There's a good callbacks in this season to stuff that happened in previous seasons, even bringing back some characters, and that's very good. They pull that off fairly well. The resolution of what happens to particularly one of those characters, a particularly nasty character, isn't handled, I think, as smoothly as it could be. It's used basically to bring up a big MacGuffin, oh no, something terrible happened, one of our, the robot might have gone rogue. And it's, pretty clear that that's not the case, and ultimately you realize very quickly that that's not the case. So, this guy who was a really bad guy in previous seasons is just mostly kind of wasted. And I guess pretty much covers it as far as the things that I really like about this series. What I dislike. So I think in all seasons, and particularly this season, they play fast and loose with the science. But in a way where they're trying to make it seem like they're doing something that's kind of hard science fictional, that it makes sense, but it's not. The science is just wrong. And I'm not talking about the super science stuff, like when the robots are actually able to create these portal, gateway, wormhole, whatever you want to call them, these jump portals that can take you, almost instantly to anywhere else in the galaxy, at least, I guess. That's super science fiction, and once you suspend your disbelief about whether or not that could happen, you're committed, and that's fine. I'm talking about stuff where plugging a power cable that is apparently powerful enough to handle the equivalent of a multi-megawatt output of a hydroelectric dam into the output, not the input, simply reverses the course of the electricity back, and makes a ship skin electrified, as opposed to completely blowing up whatever is generating the power on that ship. It's like, really? That's some interesting science that you just did there. Yeah, not buying it. And that's just one example. There's an awful lot of that throughout this. In the first season, they did, I think, smarter solutions to get, to get using science to get around the problems. In this season, some of them are still very creative, and probably could work. And some of them, like that one, is just nope, not going to happen. And that's probably my biggest gripe with this current season. The other is that I think, I'm not really sure if this is the case. I may just want more seasons. So in my mind, I think that they kind of rush this. But maybe not. Maybe this was the plan all along, is 3 seasons and you're done, and this was how they were going to get out of it, all along. I'll get to this in theme and tone and message and so on as we go forward. Those are really my only big complaints. I also think that Parker Posey's, her Dr. Smith, the resolution of her character arc is a little facile. It's a little easy. I think they could have been more complex with that, but still, it's a good and not unbelievable resolution. It's just a little simplistic. So they could have done that, I think, a little bit better. And I should give shout outs to a lot of the secondary characters, the actors. I mentioned Don West, but among the younger cast, Ajay Frieza as Vijay Dar, Raza Jaffrey as his father, who is sort of the leader of all of the Jupiters, and the Resolute when they're all together. Victor Dar. There's some very good secondary and tertiary acting in this, which of course jumps back to the likes. Okay. Here's another dislike. Don West has, for whatever reason, a pet chicken. And it's just the most distracting, silly thing. I think it's put in there just so that little kids can watch it. Although if little kids watch this, they're going to be terrified of those robots. Again, just to be clear, this is what the robots look like in their original form, and all of the forms you see, for the most part, except Robot, the one that's attached to Will. They're terrifying. So little kids probably shouldn't be watching this. So why is the chicken there? I mean, it's stupid comic relief. Don West is kind of comic relief anyway, and And again, the actor Ignacio Cerricho does a fantastic job as that. He doesn't need a chicken to do it. So yeah, I didn't like the chicken. And again, that's through the entire series. So theme, tone, messages, and so on. So the theme that we're supposed to get out of this, one is that obviously family is very important. And in this case, it's the family that, both the family that you are born with and the family that you decide to become part of your family, like Judy, but also Don West, and even to some extent Dr. Smith by the end of it. Although, kudos to them for making Dr. Smith still be that, sort of weird uncle that you think twice about inviting to Thanksgiving. I just realized that's probably me. Damn it. Anyway. So that is one of the messages or one of the themes that's supposed to come out of this, and that stays fairly consistent. Another one is essentially, and this is so anime, but we can solve problems through the power of friendship. And that starts right out with Will connecting with Robot in such a way that they essentially become friends. And it gets reinforced at the very end where most of the other kids ultimately wind up doing something very similar with other alien robots and making them friendly to them. And Will tries this with, so the one in the middle of this image is called SAR, which is literally an acronym for Will's name, Second Alien Robot. And SAR is essentially the leader of all of the other alien robots, which is why he's orange instead of red in his glow. And he's got a more black and gold color tone instead of the, kind of gunmetal gray that all the others do. Will tries to do this with SAR, and SAR rejects it. And he tries actually a couple of times, and SAR rejects it. And so Will... This is the really big spoiler for the end, but Will essentially lets Robot trick SAR, and Robot basically takes over SAR's body. At this point, Robot is seemingly destroyed, but a piece of him lives on inside Will, who at this point has an artificial heart. It's a thing. And so that little piece of Robot takes over SAR and essentially rewrites him and becomes Robot. So the theme of, we can solve all of our problems through the power of friendship ultimately ends with Robot saying, except for SAR, SAR has to not just die, but be eliminated. There is no consciousness of SAR left. It's not like, his physical form gets transformed into Robot, because the robots can change their physical form anyway. But more importantly, Robot rewrites everything about SAR and becomes Robot. It's like, okay, so you just kind of blew your whole message about, the power of friendship there, folks. Sure, it works for the most part, but I guess the message is the power of friendship works in almost all solutions to all problems. Until you get, an Adolf Hitler alien robot, wants to destroy all, essentially biological life, and there's nothing you can do about it, and so he has to be eliminated. Completely and utterly rewritten and eliminated. All right, maybe. I can't say that that's not an accurate observation. And again, that might make this way more complex a show than just the sort of anime power of friendship kind of message that it seemed like it was building toward. Or they may have just completely gone, yeah, power of friendship, except, let's have this big one surprise moment, and didn't think about how it was undercutting the theme and the message. I'm not sure whether that was a conscious decision to make the message more complex. Based on everything else in the writing, I don't think so. I think it was just, hey, this scene is going to be fantastic if we do it this way. And whether that changes the message or not, who knows and who cares. So, would I recommend this show? If you're a fan of science fiction, yeah. If you're a fan of the original series, I think so. There might be people, of course, there are going to be those idiots who can't imagine a male character ever being gender swapped so that it's a female character. And if you're one of those people and you just hate the idea of Dr. Smith being a woman, well, bury your head in the sand. Jump off a cliff. Do what go away. If you are such a fan of the original that you really don't like the idea of a reboot, I get that. That's fine. That's your call. I think that you will like the same sort of let's put our heads together and come up with a solution to this problem while there are people who are working against our interests, Dr. Smith and others, and see how it works version of this, as much as you might have liked the original, which that's a big part of the original too. And of course, you may like the updated, family dynamics and this sort of combination of dysfunction, eventually growing into functional and loving, etc. But yeah, I would recommend it if you're a science fiction fan. If nothing else, for the very creative, innovative science fiction ideas and the fantastic production design and production values. I'd say definitely it's worth a watch. Scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it probably a 6.5. It could be higher if only for like some of the things that are bad, like the chicken, really annoy me. It doesn't need to be there at all, whatsoever. And the writing in the first season is a little more melodramatic than it needs to be. No, it could be a lot. No, it could be a lot more even-handed and even-keeled, like the third season is. So, that's it. That is the spoiler chat of Lost in Space Season 3. Again, check it out if you're a science fiction fan. I think you'll probably like it if you haven't already. Before I go, jump way down here and so I can find it. There we go. While I'm doing our promos, let's have you, if you are of a mind, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We'd love to have you as a patron. We have just 3 tiers. The lowest is $2, and essentially the idea is all of that goes to help us create more content. We get to more cons. We get more videos up on YouTube, more articles and photo galleries up on the website, and so on. So patreon.com/nerdcaliber. Check it out if you get a chance. This coming Monday show is Anime Octane, and we have not figured out yet which anime show we're doing. It's kind of right there in the middle. Well, not the middle, but getting to be the end of the winter season. The fall season of 2021. And so we're not really at a show that is wrapped up, and we can't cover it in depth or completely without having the final bits. I mean, we could do something that everybody has dropped because it's garbage, but where's the fun in that? Well, that's not true. That would be a lot of fun, but I'll put up what the particular show is over the weekend, and so you guys can check it out. Then, of course, next Tuesday we have Nerd Week Live, already posting some big stuff. Our last full fat spoiler chat was Cowboy Bebop, and at the risk of you're going to see all this news already anyway. They've already canceled it. It's not going to have a season 2, so that's definitely going to be on the roster for next Tuesday. So we'll see you at one of our upcoming shows. In the meantime, stay safe, folks. Please continue to wear the mask. Abide by these new, increasingly return to stricter guidelines in the larger cities and more populous states that are out there. New York and my original home state of Maine have already activated the National Guard to help out with the fact that they're running out of beds. Now, the reports are that the Omicron variant isn't as deadly, and the symptoms are usually milder, but apparently they're bad enough, and there's enough Delta still out there that the rate of hospitalization and emergency room ICU beds are climbing. State of Maine has 42 ICU beds left in the entire state. So, folks, wear that mask. Stay safe. If you haven't got your shots, get your shots. If you haven't got your booster, schedule a booster. Mine's coming up in a few days. And we'll see you at an upcoming show. Good night.